Where's that bully? You got a bully? Do you want me to kick the bully? Where's that bully? Hi guys, Nigel here with you. It seems to me that every time I put a video up lately on my channel, well not so much lately, I seem to be excusing myself for having not done a video for ages, and here I am doing it again. The video you're about to see has been filmed over probably 4, maybe 6 weeks, and yeah, it's embarrassing that basically I am trying to move forward with this, but the weather is against me. As some of you will know, I've got a bloody Mustang which has to stay in the garage if it's windy or whatever. And do you know what, if I didn't have that bloody car, I shouldn't say a bloody car because it sounds like I hate it, I love the thing to bits. If I didn't have that Mustang, or if I could put it somewhere else in storage, I would have the Land Rover in the garage and work on it 24/7, but I could work on it all the time. But the trouble is the chassis lives outside, the chassis gets wet, I can't do any work on the chassis when it's wet. As far as I know, you can't put Waxoyl into a wet chassis. If you know different, please let me know. So yeah, it's been a good test for corrosion, as you'll see in this video. But basically, when it's windy and wet and stuff, I don't like leaving the Mustang outside. If it's too humid, or there's too much humidity, too much moisture in the air, then I can't do any spraying because it's the paint just blooms. And if you've got the dew point, which is basically the way I look at it, if you blow out your mouth and you get steam, then you're basically going to get dew, or condensation should I say. You're going to get a moisture on whatever it is you're spraying, and then the paint won't stick properly. So yeah, wrong time of year really. And I think I've said this before, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but basically earlier in the year, as you know, we had the lockdown. That was my plan, was get all this done early in the year, sort of early spring, get all the sandblasting and spraying and everything done, all the noisy, smelly stuff while everyone's at work. And then come the summer, it'll just be a case of reassembling it. Well, obviously everybody was at home, the weather was bloody gorgeous. I didn't want to go out there sandblasting and spraying when there was like loads of people sat in the gardens and that. So basically that's all put me back. And then we had that, heat waves where everything was too bloody hot. It's just the weather. It's just bloody ridiculous. I wish I lived in Hawaii. So anyway, watch this video. Enjoy what you're seeing. There's not a lot going on. And basically at the end you'll see that my equipment is basically not what I need. So I have ordered some new equipment, and that is in the post as we speak. I'm expecting it even today. Today is Saturday the 19th, is it? Yeah, Saturday the 19th of December 2020. So it could be today or Monday, and then I can get stuck into it. But please let me know if I can put Waxoyl into a chassis that has moisture in it from rain. Please let me know, because I don't know if the Waxoyl chases the water away and gets under it, or if it's just going to sit on top of it and then not sort of bomb to the surface. Please let me know. So enjoy, and I'll see you soon. Happy Christmas. Hello guys, yes, I'm still here, and yes, we got back to woolly hat time. So that didn't last long, did it? What a year it's been, eh? Anyway, here I am back and out in the garage. I've just come out here. You see it's quite cold. So this has really been the problem. It's been too hot, it's been too cold, it's been too windy, it's been too wet, blah blah blah, all the excuses. But here I am, back with another video for you today. Today we're going to be looking at doing some inspection on the chassis. Now the chassis was painted a good couple of months ago. It's been out in all sorts of weathers. So we'll see how well that's fared. Any little areas where there's rust appearing, we can now go around and touch in, and then we're going to give the chassis a Waxoyl. So that's what this video is going to be all about. But first of all, we need to get things sorted. So you can see here, there's the axle, this is the rear axle, and I want to paint this again. This is about 3 times this has been painted, and I don't know if you can see it here. If you look there, you can see there's like a reaction in the paint, and I know I'm being over fussy and I know I'm being stupid. It's got some dust and stuff on it, but it is quite shiny, but unfortunately it's had a reaction. So I just want to give it another coat of paint, which means rubbing it back. But one of the things this paint doesn't like is humidity. It does bloom. So at the moment, with the weather being like it is, I can't really go on and give it another coat. So it's just sat here on this cradle. I can just lift it up and move it out of the way. Over here we've got Mr. Mustang in our way, still with its Dodge badge on it, as you can see there. And then we've got the beautiful one out there. No, I'm not going to show you the number plate. And then over here we've got the Land Rover chassis. So I'm going to get all this sorted, get it all moved around, and then we'll get the Land Rover in and have a look. But in the meantime, let me take you in the house and show you what's in there. Here we are in the living room, and we've got Mr. Harley there, and then there's Jess come to see what's going on, and then we've got our knuckles and diffs. We've got some wheel hubs here and some brakes, some disc brakes. On the coffee table we've got hubs, and we've got engine, transmission mounts, some brackets and bits and pieces here. Titanic puzzle that my mum's just done. And there's the front axle, you can see all looking nice and shiny. There's my hand waving, woohoo, hello, with all the trusses welded on. And then up on the sofa we've got the rear cover there. We've got some more Land Rover parts over there. You've got all these parts over here. You can see on the fireplace there's the grill with the Jeep grill behind it. It's a good grill guard, that. And then we've got got some Land Rover parts over there. There's the radiator and the heater. And then there's some more bits over there, and then over here behind the sofa we've got the front wings, and then we've got the dashboard over here, and there's a blanket that I put over my push bike when I'm over the stuff to keep it down, stop the dust getting on. And then we've got the steering wheel lock on the sofa there. We've got the cross member for the chassis, and then there's the rear tank guard, and there's the toolkit there. So as you can see, I mean, the whole house is absolutely full. Over here we've got my beer collection, we've got my push bike there, and then you can see we've got some Corona rods there, nice. But we've got Land Rover parts all under here. There's the wiring loom there in that bag. So there's the wiring loom. We've got some pedal boxes, and then if we go out of the living room into the study, then it's well, I'll take you across out of the living room into the study, where I think it's going to be quite dark. Put the light on. Here we go, and you can see that in here it's still quite dark, but you can just about make out. There's the boot line in there, and then there's the some other parts. Got the bulkhead and everything there, with engine parts down here. You can see some engine parts down there just about. So yeah, the house is absolutely overrun with Land Rover parts. You can see boxes there, there's some other parts back there. And then here in the hallway you can see we've got there's the gearbox with the rear cover still not on, and then we've got some more bits here, some brackets and stuff all in primer, and then we've got the main engine front cover there. So yeah, the house is absolutely overrun with Land Rovers. Right, so here we go in the chassis in the garage, and just looking over the chassis I can see there's a couple of bits, like over here you can see on this engine mount where there was some weld spatter. Obviously I've got the paint quite thin or whatever, so we can see that there's some sort of staining from corrosion starting there. I've also noticed some on these, here we go, a couple of welds here. You can just see some discoloration starting in there. So I think what I'm going to do is go around, dry it off. Can't believe it, as soon as I finished making the last segment video, it started bloody raining. So that's what I've been waiting for, is this thing to dry out. There's a bird leaving a friendly deposit on here. These nuts and bolts, they're obviously got these zinc plating on when they're new. They've all rusted. I've sandblasted them, painted them over with zinc primer. They're rusting again. I'm not really going to worry too much about that. I may end up getting one of these bolt kits. You can get whatever. But I'd rather have the 8.8, you know, really strong bolts than risk having, you know, nice pretty stainless steel bolts that don't rust, but they're as brittle as bloody Cadbury's chocolate. So here we go. We can get some idea there. We've got some rust starting in here, obviously in areas where the paint hasn't been able to get. So I think what I'm going to do is make up a nice thin mix of the paint that I've used, the Corylus QDR. Got some on the edge there, you can just see starting. Got some down in there as well. I think what I'm going to do is make up a nice thin mix of the QDR and then just sort of brush it in the areas where I want it, rather than get overspray, because the trouble is with this stuff, when it oversprays it really is like bloody sandpaper, and it's horrible. So I think this area here on this engine mount is the worst. It's probably where the paint's a little thin perhaps, but I can't say I'm absolutely over the moon. I was expecting to see no corrosion whatsoever, but then I guess, you know, a lot of this was sandblasted. It was quite rusty before, so, you know, and it is a Land Rover chassis that's probably as good, if not better, than it was when it was new. So let's get a thin mix of paint mixed up and see where we go from there. Right, so I've got a thin mix here in an old tin, and this is basically about 40% thinners, 60% paint, so it's a nice thin. As you can see, it's a nice thin mix. The reason I've done it that thin, I want it to penetrate and get into all the nooks and crannies. So I'm just going to brush this on here, and hopefully, because it's so thin, we won't get any brush marks in it. Yes, I know I am being a very big tart needlessly, and I don't need to be, but I am. and that is it and all about it. So that's that painted over. Now I know what you're thinking, oh my god, he didn't remove the rust. Well, that's the idea. This stuff has got a rust killing agent in it, so as long as you don't have loose flaking rust, then it will actually penetrate and kill the rust that's there. So I'm going to grind the rest of the little bits on the chassis now, get that done. That's drying already, believe it or not. And then once I'm done, I'll just go over them again with a second coat, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so there's the painting all done. As you can see, I've gone over all the welds, and you can see a slight edge to the paint there, but I'm really happy with that. So I've gone over all the welds on the upper surfaces, so they've all had like a sort of third and fourth coat of paint now. So and that area over there, as you can see by that engine light I did, that's all looking lovely. So basically you need to just let this see how it looks now after it's been in the rain again. That's the best test. And this area down the back here, you can see down there where it was rusty, that's all done. We can go on the other side, go across the cross member, and you can see down in there, that's all done as well. Down in there, lighting's not too good, but there we go, all done. There was an area here. You have to be careful of this if you are doing one of these, where you get spot welds. You sometimes get like a little thick flange, you can see on there where it's kind of overdone it, and it will rust under there, so make sure you get under there. There we go. What I might want to do is actually just give this a blast with the Waxoyl on the upper surfaces, and then wipe it off, and then the Waxoyl will penetrate into all the little nooks and crannies. But other than that, really happy. So this is my Waxoyl application kit. This is, oh dear, 20 years old. So I don't know if you can even still get it now. But basically, as you can see on here, it says refillable pressure can. And what you've got here is a pump. You can pump it up. I've got it apart because it hasn't been used. The last time I used this was when I did this chassis back in 2011, the day I bought the Land Rover. So, you know, this chassis is testament to how good this stuff is. When you actually look inside the chassis, go back a couple of videos, I've done some pictures of it inside, and you'll see that it's just absolutely spotless. So we're going to do it again. Some people recommend Waxoyl is redone every year. This was done 9 years, well, almost 10 years ago now, and you know, it's fine. So the outer surface is rust, but they weren't Waxoyled. So now we're going to do the inside of it again, and now that I've got the chassis on a rotisserie, I can actually turn it upside down and do it to make sure it gets into every single nook and cranny there is. And then when we pull the wiring through, we'll probably pull half of it out, but never mind. So there we go. I've got a few brackets bolted in place. That's just basically to plug some holes. I've got a feeling these brackets, like this one here and this one over here, they'll have to come out to get the gearbox in and the transfer box, but that's no problem. It plugs the holes. And then I've got some various containers. You can see up on the top there I've got a KFC bucket and then we've got some other buckets and pots and that you can see in here, where there we are. And then I've got some more, you know, some other little bits and pieces. But basically we need all the buckets and pots we can to catch the Waxoyl as it comes out the holes. I wouldn't recommend doing this on a tarmac driveway because the Waxoyl seems to have like a white spirit turpentine base, and it will actually you know, really attack your tarmac and give you soft spots like getting diesel on it. You know, it does attack the tarmac. So either get some cardboard or paper down or whatever. I did it on my driveway, covered it in cardboard, and I was absolutely fine. But now that I've got the garage here, I can do it in the garage. Any gets on the floor can be mopped up, any that I don't catch. And basically we're just going to do everything. I've also got to do the cross member. I mustn't forget to do the cross member. I can do that before I put it in. I also want to do all this area here. I'm going to brush Waxoyl or spray Waxoyl in this area before I bolt the cross member in, because this is a very thin section, a thin cavity there where it can get in. Worth bearing in mind, if you have got a TD5, I think, definitely a Puma, they bolt the cross member in before they paint the chassis. So all this area here, if you remember, all this area here and all this area down here is not painted. It's just bare metal. Water gets behind there, it rusts. I managed to spray a little Waxoyl in there when I first bought it, but obviously it wasn't going to get into the actual areas around where the bolts were actually clamping. So if you look back a few videos ago, you'll see that I had rust here, and I had some rust on here, but otherwise it was good. You can see the Waxoyl along there. You may not have guessed that I actually like Waxoyl. So there we go. So what I've got to do now is make a start on this, but unfortunately I can't because it's bloody freezing cold. This pipe is nylon solid, so I can only assume it's freezing cold and also bunged up with solidified Waxoyl. So I'm going to go and put this in the bath in some hot water, or in the sink I think, in some hot water, and leave it for a couple of hours and let it all sort of soak and then blow it through. So I think we're going to have to come back to this another day, but it'll be another day for me and a couple of seconds for you. Okay, and so we're back. This is, I don't know, something like, hello, this is something like, I don't know, 10 days later now. Weather's still rubbish, it's quite cold today, so these pipes I've got for the Waxoyl are all quite hard, whereas when you warm them up in warm water they become very soft. So yeah, right, so here we go. This is the Waxoyl. This is how you get it. It's from Waxoyl, which are obviously now part of Hammerite, or have bought Hammerite or whatever. So it's a Hammerite product. I absolutely swear by this. Look back through my videos and you'll see where I've shown you pictures inside my chassis. I basically bought the Land Rover, stripped it, did all the copper slip and all the nuts and bolts, Waxoyl the chassis all inside, not outside. I can't stand seeing anything on the outside of chassis. I just like to see them painted. For those of you that want to comment on the video and say that basically you don't agree this stuff is any good, and there are, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F products out there that are better, I'm really not interested. If you look at Life's Projects, you've got Tom over there. He's doing very similar to me. He hasn't completely stripped his Land Rover down, but he is basically rebuilding it. And you'll see how rusty his chassis was as a result of somebody applying one of these, so say, fantastic coatings. Our Land Rovers are the same age. His has got more miles on, but basically they're the same age. And if you look at his chassis, it is rusty all over. And if you look at mine, it was only rusty where it was welded, basically because of the poor weld prep. So yeah, you come along, you've got a chassis which has got a very poor prep on it. Then you spray on a coating that goes hard, which is just wonderful. You get a scratch or a crack, and all of a sudden you've got a capillary action going on, and the water and the moisture is going to get in there. And where it doesn't, the paint hasn't bonded to the steel at all because they didn't do any prep at GKN, then it's just going to peel away anyway. So, you know, I am living proof, my chassis is living proof that this stuff works. It's 9, nearly 10 years old now. There is not a spot of rust on the inside of this chassis, and it was done once from the day it was new. That's the other thing, people will tell you you need to redo this every couple of years. I think if you do it on your vehicle from new, I don't think you need to. I have done tests with this in the past, because in my younger years I used to love Fiats and everything Italian, which, as we all know, used to rust like buggery. So, you know, this was my go-to product. And yeah, I've seen this. It will actually, if you've got a chassis that's rusty, you can spray it inside the chassis and it will soak in. You might want to thin it down with some white spirit, thin it down 15-20%, so it's nice and runny, and then it will absorb into the rust, and then it will kind of dry out, obviously, because it's having to spread itself over a larger area. So I would suggest, if you have got rust there, do it every couple of years and it will keep it at bay. As far as actually spraying onto external areas like wheel arches, chassis, it does work, but it will get washed away, beaten away by stones or whatever, so you need to keep an eye on that. But basically this stuff never dries. You can see it here. It's like a waxy substance. It does go slightly harder than that, but it never goes more than like that, you know, that thick honey of a similar colour, not the runny honey. The runny honey, I'm a poet. So yeah, so basically they are 5 litres. It costs about £30-35, and it is absolutely worth it. 5 litres will do a chassis easily, in my opinion. What I do is I use this kit here, which is this pressurised thing, and then we put this into the top. We pressurise the container, and then using this lance, it will come out through the end of this tube, and that's basically a tube with a nail in it, and it just sprays around inside the chassis. So I'll show you that in a minute. And then we've also got this attachment here, which you take this tube off, basically screw that on there, and then you've got a spraying wand, which is great for doing like underneath outriggers and stuff. Now, I haven't actually thinned this yet. I probably won't. I have had it stood in hot water for about half an hour, so it's nice and thin and runny. If you hear that, it will go, when it's in the tin, when it's fresh, it's sort of the consistency of, I don't know, like mayonnaise kind of, and if you leave it long enough in hot water, it will go like gravy. So yeah, it's good to get it hot, and thinner it is, the better it can penetrate into your gaps and flanges and any rust or anything. So there we go. I did actually contact Waxoyl and said, would you like to sponsor a video? And they said, yeah, they sent me a can, and very, very good of them. So thank you very much for that. I'll send them a link to this video so they can see. But as I say, you know, it's okay for people to come online and tell you this product is brilliant and it's fantastic and look at how it works and everything. My Land Rover, as I say, go back and look at the previous videos. It is living proof that this stuff is amazing. So I'm going to get all this together now, get this pressure can pressurised, and then we'll start to get the Waxoyl in done. Right, so I've got my lid screwed on now. That's the pressure bit. So all this is, you just pump this up. As I say, I'm not even sure if these are still available. I'm sure they are, because it says on here about using the high pressure lamps. So there must be a variation of it. Maybe they've got something that screws onto the actual can now. But basically, just pump this up. Get some pressure. You can hear the pressure relief valve there. Check that's working, because you don't want to go blowing anything up. I'm wearing gloves basically because this stuff it contains white spirit, and as any of you will know, you get white spirit in your hands for any length of time, it soaks into your skin, and then you have the next 3 weeks in agony where your skin is all split on the end underneath the nails and stuff. So and all around the cuticles and that. So basically, wear gloves. Don't get this stuff on your hands. It's not particularly poisonous or dangerous, I don't think, but it does sort of play havoc with your skin. So basically, I've got this tube here. It's a pain because it's all hard and solid, but and there's going to be some air in there. But basically, all we got is this here is going to go inside the chassis. So if I can, right then, guys, as we can see, we have got a bench with some bits on it. I can't continue any further. I've tried and tried for about the last 2 hours. And basically, it's about 4 or 5 degrees today. It's quite cold, obviously. I'm putting the Waxoyl in hot water, and it goes, you know, like I say, like runny gravy. The trouble is, because it's cold, within 5 minutes it's started to gel again. So obviously, you know, it needs to be a fairly thick substance when it's set, so that it clings to everything. But obviously, when you spray it to get it through these little pipes and everything, it needs to be, you know, of a low viscosity. Now, I have used it in the past where I've thinned it right down, sort of 50-50 with white spirit, and that's all well and good, but the trouble is then it all runs out everywhere. So it tends to, if you can imagine, if I painted some thick gloss paint here and some thin gloss paint next to it, this would all run off, and the thick gloss paint, you get runs in it, but it would still leave a thick layer on there, and it's the same sort of thing. So I wouldn't advise over thinning Waxoyl, unless it's like, you know, if it's going into an enclosed box section where you want a nice thick layer in the bottom and you want it to soak into all the joints and everything, then great. But the trouble is, if it's got openings in the bottom like a sill section on a car, more runs out than stays in there because it's so thin, if you get what I mean. So I don't want to do that. So basically what I've got to do now is leave this until we've got weather which is slightly warmer. Now I think we've got some slightly warmer weather coming, sort of 10-12 degrees, which I think will make a massive difference. But basically today it's a no-no. The other thing I'm going to go and look at now is if I can buy a cheap application kit, which is something like this, but to use with a compressor, so I can then get sort of 40-50 psi behind it and bang it in, which would be preferential, because with this thing, I mean, it's a great little system and it works really well. I've used it loads of times. As I said earlier, I've had it for years, but I've never come across this. So it's obviously a temperature issue that's doing it. I know it's not broken, it can't break. It's basically putting pressure in a can and spraying it down a tube, but the tubes are quite fine. So sorry about that, guys. So we've seen me paint the chassis, we've seen the chassis, and you know, we did get a couple of areas of rust and everything. So I'm going to call that a day for this video. Basically, I guess all we've learned is that I'm still here. I haven't left this behind. So there we go, guys. As I say, that sort of Waxoyl pump up thing isn't really working very well with the Waxoyl getting cold. I put it in hot water, it thins it out like single cream. It thins it out like that, and within 5 minutes it's back to being like I don't know, like thick honey again. So it just doesn't man enough to spray it. So obviously when I did it the first time, which is the last time I used my Waxoyl or that spraying equipment, it would have been April. My Land Rover was built on delivered on the 5th of April 2011. So basically I I would have got it a couple of days after that, so it probably was the 7th of April or something, and then I did it, so it would have been warmer. So obviously the cold weather's no good. So as I say, I've ordered some professional equipment now, which is air fed, so I can get some more pressure behind it, and hopefully, you know, even if I have to get 40 psi behind it, I can blast it in there, and that'll be job done, and then we can start getting it all bolted back together, which I know is something you've been waiting to see. So as I said in the intro, happy Christmas, stay safe, and just have fun. Bye for now, see you soon.